We begin with a third round of talks about air safety between top Pentagon brass and Russian commanders. Both sides say the goal to prevent mishaps in the skies over Syria. Moscow says its jets came within eyesight of an American aircraft over the weekend. CCTV's Roy Rottenberg is here with more. Roy, what are you hearing?
Well, this is really about the rules of engagement. You have two sides effectively leading their own campaigns, and close encounters like the one we saw were bound to happen. Now, according to the U.S. Department of Defense, there was some progress made in Wednesday's talks. Progress, the word they're using. The goal is to establish a guideline for specific safety features, a binding document that will prevent possible errors being made, but so far it appears they aren't quite there.
The Russian Defense Ministry released this footage on Wednesday, showing what it says are its latest airstrikes over Syria. More than 40 flyover missions, officials say, in the course of 24 hours, and dozens of ISIL targets hit. Success on the ground, but possible problems in the air, as Moscow confirmed that over the weekend, its jets came within sight of American aircraft.
As they approached the target area, threat alert signals sounded in our aircraft. Our planes turned toward the signal and approached. This was not to intimidate anyone, but to identify the other aircraft. After that, our aircraft returned to formation to perform their pre-designated mission.
The two sides met via video conference on Wednesday, the third time since Moscow's airstrikes began, to, quote, promote safe flight operations, a guideline aimed at ensuring American and Russian planes don't accidentally engage one another midair. Washington's Arab coalition partners fear the U.S. may be cooperating and thus endorsing Russia, which backs Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The Obama administration aimed to reassure them it is not.
We're going to continue to have a dialogue, as we must with Russia, about what they're doing in Syria. But all that's great. But if it doesn't lead us to a better outcome here, which is not the pursuit of a military solution to the civil war, not the propping up of Assad, not the exacerbation of more violence in Syria, then those discussions aren't going to prove very productive and fruitful.
Meanwhile, the UN envoy for Syria was due in Washington on Wednesday, immediately following his visit to Moscow. Stefan de Mistura insists military intervention in Syria isn't sustainable. And Turkey said it summoned the U.S. ambassador in Ankara to voice its, quote, displeasure with its American ally, following a U.S. ammunition airdrop in Syria. The Americans say the weapons were earmarked for rebels fighting ISIL.
But Ankara says it's worried those weapons might get into the wrong hands, namely Syrian Kurds, who may use them against Turkey. It delivered a similar warning to Russia as human rights activists charge some of those Kurdish groups with committing war crimes. The U.S. says it is arming Syrian Arab groups, but it admitted it cannot control where every bullet lands.
Wow, and Roy, you mentioned these planes came close to each other. How close are we talking about here?
Well, that's right. According to the Russians, somewhere like 2 to 3 kilometers apart. That might not seem like a lot on the ground driving distance, but remember, this is happening in the air. These are jets traveling at very high speeds, and this is exactly what the U.S. was warning when Russia entered this airstrike campaign on September 30th. 3 weeks ago, they said these errors are bound to happen. Turkey expressed concern when Russian jets violated what it said was its airspace. This was just a matter of time, and now we're seeing this effort to really ensure that these types of things don't happen again in the future. Asiye?
All right, CCTV's Roy Rottenberg. Thanks, Roy.